Okay, we're going to get started with our regular council meeting now. I'm sorry, we're going to get started. Okay, we would like to welcome everyone to our Bountiful City Council meeting tonight. And to begin, Mariana Harper has offered to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
We have everyone stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mariana. We are grateful that Pastor Joshua Knight is here from the Flourishing Grace Church, who will lead us in a prayer.
Mayor Harris, thank you so much for having me. Members of the council, thank you so much for all that you guys do. Before we pray, I just want to say thank you. I know that you all have a pretty thankless job at times. And so just wanted to say that I appreciate all that you guys do for our city and for our church and for our communities. Thank you. Let's pray. Father, we come before you and we lift up this council to you. We lift up their meeting tonight. Pray that you would bless it. Pray that you give them just a supernatural measure of wisdom this evening as they discuss important business concerning the lives of the citizens of Bountiful. And I pray that you would just bless them tonight. We pray a blessing over this city that they serve and care so well for. We pray for, just protection. We pray for our men and women of law enforcement. Pray that you would keep them safe every single day, that you would return them home to their families every night. We pray for all of our first responders that serve our community and for all of the unsung heroes that are serving in all the corners of this city. We lift them up to you. We pray a special blessing on them and their families tonight. Watch over them and bless them and keep them. Praise things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Pastor Knight. We now will open the public comment period. If anyone would like to speak, we'd love to hear from you. It's 2 minutes, and please state your name and address.
My name is Stephen Joy at 36 East, 1000 South, just south of the police station on 10th South. My wife and I have a small garden, 20 by 20 feet, and I look around at our neighbors, and one of the biggest problems they have are the deer control that come in and mow their gardens on a regular basis. We have sufficiently 6-foot-high fences around us that prohibit that type of thing, but I also I'm more concerned about an organization of what it takes to get community gardens. Prior to this afternoon, I could barely spell it. And I look online and I see a lot of good helps available. I see an organization called Wasatch Community Gardens, and I see that they have a lot of experience. I would hope that we would be able to draw on their experiences and ideas that they might have. I don't think an acre plot is the way to go if possible. I think smaller city lots would be more easily supported by the community, and that's something we would have to address in a committee. But I think that community gardens are a way to go. My wife and I have enjoyed our garden, and I raise bees. I bought bees to raise, so it improves our garden pollination, and that really improved our garden 100%. There are a lot of things that involved in the community that make a garden. Water, volunteer labor, access to clean gardening where you're not using a lot of pesticides, and a lot of things like that. And I'd be happy to work with a committee that's organizing such a thing for the city.
Thank you very much. Who else would like to speak? 2 minutes, just state your name and address, please.
Hi, I know I would do that. My name is Elizabeth Borsham. I live at 137 West, 2600 South. 137 West, 2900 South. I'm nervous. I own a cut flower garden business, Bountiful Blooms. Been very successful for about 6 years. I have a degree in landscape design. I teach gardening classes, cut flower mostly, in West Bountiful at Loveland greenhouses, and my classes sell out. With a lot of interest. There's been a lot of interest in the last few years about not just gardening for vegetables, but gardening for beauty, for flowers. And I would say most of my classes, most of my students would say, we know how to grow vegetables, but we don't know how to grow flowers, which I think they're plants, they're the same. My sister Angela ran the farmer's market here. My sister Becca is on the art council here, and they looked at me and said, Lizzie, don't do it. Don't be the gardening hatch sister in City Hall. But I've driven around the city looking for open land. I have about a half acre of myself and was trying to find more land to grow flowers. My business has grown. I sell out. I don't have enough. There's a lot more businesses. Every year it seems to be more and more local flowers is trending. And I just see empty spaces in our city that could be beautiful. And I would love to work and ask Brock, where could that be? Where can we, with limited city resources, with our limited growing season, where could we make it more beautiful? If you've driven past that beautiful spot in Centerville, it looks beautiful year-round, even when things are small, even when things are big. They have really maintained a beautiful spot there. I've run community gardens. I'm from Palo Alto, California. I've run community gardens there. So this isn't my wheelhouse, but like Councilmember Price Hush said, we do need city support.
Thank you.
I'm just really excited about the idea of having a community garden in Bountiful, and frankly, I'm surprised that we don't already have one. Like, what? We're the Garden City. Why don't we have?
Just for the record, if you don't mind giving your name and address.
I'm Mariana Harper.
Thank you.
I live in Bountiful, 1076 Sunset Drive. I'm surprised that we don't have one already. So, of course, it just makes sense that we ought to have one. And I think there's such a great need for it, especially right now when there's so many people who are needing to rent. There's so many renters. It's increasing all the time. And a lot of them don't have the opportunity to have their own gardens in their places. And to get these people, and a lot of them are younger, involved in the community, they become invested in their community and develop a love and a passion for their community and their city. And I think it would be encouraging for them. It would having a garden that they felt invested in would encourage them when the time came for them to buy or to pick a long-term home. Why not pick the city that they really love and that they've invested in for years? And so I think it would really help our young people and to help bring buyers and permanent residents, which is wonderful, the community, when it's not such a transient community. So, and anything that you can do to bring people to love where they live, whether they've worked hard in it, it develops love. Whether they have found friends and people they can come together and share knowledge and experiences with, it's always a wonderful thing to invest in your community that way. So, thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Joy Ames. I live at 247 South, 100 East, and I recently started a Bountiful Garden Club. Brother Higginson's wife is a member. And there has been a lot of people interested in just learning how to grow their own food. And my main goal with Community Garden is allowing people to have a place where they can go and find some food security that they might not be able to at a grocery store. Fruits and vegetables are expensive and going up in price. And even shopping sales, it's hard to find good quality organic food. And so having a garden that is vegetables, but also flowers to bring the bees to pollinate the garden, that is diverse and available to a number of different residents in our community, I think would grow a sense of community among those who like to garden here. And I would really like to see it move forward and be part of that move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, we will close our public comment period. Thanks very much for everyone who spoke. And we'll now consider approval of minutes of previous meetings held on June 11th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Bradshaw, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and now we will move to council reports. Councilwoman Price-Hewish.
Oh, my goodness. I just want to say a big thank you to all of the members of the Bountiful City Youth Council who've been involved in so many projects this summer. Tomorrow, we have some kids who are going to be involved as volunteers at the Joy Foundation's Chalk Art Festival. So just a huge thank you to those wonderful, wonderful kids. Today, I had a really great opportunity to meet with our power director, Alan Johnson, and his incredible team of people and at the Power Commission meeting. And those are the best meetings in town. They're just exceptional people, and you learn so much. I will not touch on all of the things, but I just want to say our power director, Alan Johnson, has such a breadth and depth of knowledge, and he brings so much experience and knowledge to this position. And I just am so grateful for you, Alan. And I am only going to touch on one thing. There were so many things covered today, power resource updates and what's happening with UAMPS and I mean, exciting things, would you believe it or not, with varnish removal at our power plant. I mean, this is like a really important thing, and I'll just touch on it briefly, but our power department realized that we were having outages because are they generators? Is that, or what was getting the varnish?
The oil in the generator.
Yeah, so they were getting this varnish. The oil was testing clean, but the varnish was causing overheating. And they detected this problem. And before the heat of the summer, they started mitigating the problem with the varnish. And so as we've had these incredibly hot temperatures, our generators have been operating properly, and it's just a real great testament to, again, the team's ability to look at problems, identify them, mitigate them, solve them, and help the residents of our city. One other thing I just want to, so thank you for that, because that's helping all of us stay cool, have the lights on, not having outages. One thing that was brought up today that is a significant area of concern that I feel like also needs to be touched on is Pacific Core on May 15th announced a 45% increase in transmission rates. And they only had to give, is this right, Alan, 2 weeks notice. And starting June 1st, everyone who gets power off those transmission lines will be paying more money for that power, and that includes us. And that is a really, really significant thing. And so I think that's something to bear in mind, that there are some things out there that even when we're hedging for our power resources to get us through the summer, get us through the hot months, and when we're excited that we have more power coming in from the Colorado River Storage Project, and we're getting power off Echo and Pineview and our hydro resources, that there's still things out there that are always coming down the pike. And that's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with in the coming, months. And then just one final thing. I know everyone in here loves updates on the butt-treated poles. We are one of those cities that is a real utilizer of the butt-treated poles, and we put in, again, this speaks to Alan and his team, that they're looking forward at what do we need to have in our resource pile so we don't come up against a shortage. And those poles are very unique type of pole. There's only one manufacturer that does this kind of pole that is very unique for backyard maintenance. So again, looking forward, thinking about the future, and I can't say enough about the power department, and thank you, Alan.
Thank you so much for that report. That's great. Just a report on the South Davis Sewer District. We voted this last week to increase the fees by $8. And this was kind of a big jump for the sewer district. And the reasons why are they have new phosphorus limits, they have reduced ammonia limits. Just to give you an idea of chemicals and the costs that they have there at the South Davis Sewer District, a few years ago, they would spend $400,000 to $500,000 on ammonia. And now they're spending $1.6 million this year. And so it's just amazing, the regulations and the chemicals that are needed and the costs that keep increasing. They're also bonding for their North Plant construction upgrades. And then, of course, just trying to be competitive with their employee compensation and keep the employees that they have. They are fantastic. They remind me of our city in the way that they make do. They do things like rebuild parts and rebuild pumps, and they really stretch the dollars that they have there. And so, but we did vote to increase the rates. So just an update on that. Councilwoman Bradshaw, do you have a report tonight?
I have a collection of random things to share with all of you. So the first is you are all aware of the recent legislative special session, and the legislature did consider HB 3004, which addressed many of the concerns of IPA and of Bountiful related to the IPP power plant in Delta. Not all the concerns, but some of the most immediate and pressing concerns. I know that all of you were following it closely and are aware, but for all of our online listening audience, the governor has signed it. He signed it on Friday of last week, so it's immediately effective on his signature. So that's good news. The other announcement is that I told you in prior updates that the South Davis Recreation District was going to be seeking 2 community members who the board would select so that we would have a 7-member board rather than an 8-member board, and the board, the 5 cities would select those board members rather than the county. So we have done that. We have extended an offer, sounds like it's a job offer, and this is for 0 compensation, so it's not really a job offer, but we've extended, we've done those interviews. We had 6 finalists, and we've invited 2 of those finalists to join the board, and they will be sworn in at our next meeting in July.
Are those names public, or are you not? Should you not say that yet?
I don't think they are yet public because we haven't officially voted to accept them. We will do that and then swear them in at the next meeting. I can tell you that one of them, we made a decision as the rec district board to make sure that those 2 people came from different cities. We didn't want to, stack 2 from one city plus the city member and have, 3 board members from one city, as actually happened under the prior board makeup. But I can tell you that one of them is someone from Bountiful, so I'm excited to share that with you when that person is officially sworn in and added. So, and continuing with other random updates, as you guys are aware, I serve on behalf of the League of Cities and Towns on the Utah Outdoor Adventure Commission. That commission has been charged with adopting a statewide recreation master plan and has completed and presented that master plan. And now the task is creating regional, two levels of committees. There'll be a ranking committee that will have 2 people from city government, 2 from county government, and 1 from type of an AOG type of government. That will be a ranking committee. Those are broken up into multi-county areas. We're in the Wasatch Front group here in Davis County, and then there'll be regional councils, and those will be broader. Will include staff from cities, from counties, from recreation districts, state parks and recreation employees, federal employees, people from trails committees like our Trails Committee. So there'll be these 2 different groups that'll be set up regionally underneath the Outdoor Adventure Commission. So this ranking committee and the regional committee. And applications for those are due by July 31st. The League of Cities and Towns has sent out information to for people that would like to apply. I've shared that with our Trails Committee and some others I'm aware of, but I think it's an interesting opportunity for people that are passionate about trails, both motorized and non-motorized. It includes boating and other outdoor recreation, things like that. So I want to put that on your radar that July 31st is that application deadline. And that ends my collection of random updates.
Great, thank you. Very good. Councilman Higginson.
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Murray.
Just an update that Music in the Parks has kicked off last week with the Bountiful's Got Talent. It was a great evening. It was nice to go down and participate in that. And there was a nice tribute to Tori Beck for the passing of her son this last week. So she was one of the judges, I think, for the Bountiful's Got Talent. So it was neat to see them incorporate that and with her absence. And excited for this next week. And the schedule's good. Richard and his staff, or committee, I should say, have done a good job at getting this year's concerts in order.
Thank you.
For a lot of people.
That's great. Okay. We'll now consider approval of expenditures greater than $1,000 paid on June 5th and 12th, 2024.
Move to approve those as printed, Mayor.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Price Hewish. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now we'll turn the time over to Mr. Tyson Beck for our annual fraud risk assessment presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Harris and members of the council. Excited to come before you tonight and talk about risk assessment at Bountiful City. So the State Auditor's Office has asked that governments do a risk assessment process annually. This is the presentation in the public meeting that is expected by the State Auditor's Office, and so happy to talk about their specific checklist, but please know that Bountiful City Management has long held the practice of risk assessment as one of its standards. It's a necessary step to make sure that we're looking for risk at Bountiful City, and this is specifically for fraud risk or the intent to deceive for personal gain. So that's the discussion tonight, but please understand that this goes much deeper than just the surface level requirement that the State Auditor's Office has. So it's a privilege to talk about at least a segment of what Bountiful City does as a management team to try and identify and mitigate risk at Bountiful City. Tonight, the specific requirement of the State Auditor's Office is to go through a checklist. And this will be the 5th time that I've presented this checklist to the City Council. It's kind of crazy to think that already 5 years have passed since this was set in place by the State Auditor's Office. But they've created a checklist that identifies policies and procedures that they believe are important to an internal control environment for the city and for any governmental entity. Their checklist has a matrix, a score matrix that identifies risks either as very low or all the way up to very high. And so it has 5 levels: very low, low, moderate, high, or very high. And depending upon how you answer the questions to their checklist, you're awarded certain points. And those points then total up, and if you're in a certain point range, you fall in one of those 5 categories. So tonight, presenting before you and in the staff report is the actual checklist from the State Auditor's Office. And you can see the exact way that we responded to each of those checklist items. The total for fiscal year 2024, 2024, is 335 out of 339 points. So that puts us in that low fraud risk category. I wanted to read one statement from the State Auditor's website just to help you understand a little bit about this checklist specifically. So on their website it says, "This assessment is a starting point. It is the hope of the office that local governments will add to and adapt this form to improve how they manage their internal controls and risks of fraud, waste, and abuse." So they fully acknowledge that this is a starting point when you're considering internal controls and fraud risk. And each entity is different. Each entity has different operations and responsibilities, and as well as the people that work there. So obviously, there's not going to be one shoe that fits all sizes. So they recognize that, and that this checklist is to begin the conversation of saying, are we trying to properly segregate duties and make sure that not any one person has full access to cash, to reconciling, to adjustments, and then to talk about important policies that should be in place. So you can see in the staff report all the areas where we feel that we are sufficient to be awarded those points from the checklist. So again, we're in that low category based off of our assessment, and there are 3 areas where we've not awarded ourselves those points, and one of those we specifically addressed last year. The council will remember that we had talked about the item number 4, where employees and elected officials are required to annually commit in writing to abide by a statement of ethical behavior. So we talked about trying to implement that this fiscal year. Unfortunately, with the challenge of all the additional tasks and responsibilities that have come our way this fiscal year, that was not something that we were able to achieve. Our hope with this was to go beyond just a quick statement that says, I will be ethical, but more of a ethical conduct. So create a statement that truly tries to impress upon employees the value of ethical behavior and the importance of that to both themselves as employees and the residents of Bountiful City. So we wanted to go beyond just a quick statement that somebody signs and they don't think about it again. But so it was we envisioned a more in-depth project on this, and unfortunately we weren't able to get to that point. So we did not award ourselves those points this year. And then the other 2 is the internal fraud function, internal audit function, excuse me, and then a formal audit committee. And we've talked about those 2 in the past, where we've looked at the cost-benefit ratio of both of those, and we've not felt that the benefit would be sufficient to outweigh the cost. And that there are many factors that go into the cost, whether that's increased staffing, or whether that's hiring a professional to sit on a fraud committee or an audit committee. So we've looked at those in the past and felt that those specific items would not fit Bountiful's perfectly, and so that's why we've continued to not implement those and move forward in that function. So that's the high-level assessment of our fiscal year 2024 and where we felt Bountiful City fell in this specific checklist from the State Auditor's Office. So that's the report and assessment, and happy to answer any questions. There's no formal action required by the City Council tonight, just a presentation and discussion if there's specific questions that would like to be asked.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Mr. Beck?
Mayor, if I may, I have a question. Going back up to the statement of ethical behavior, I understand what you're saying, so wasn't like you're wanting to be very purposeful and intentional, not just throw something out there. Have you looked at other cities and seen other cities that you think are good models for this, so we might not have to recreate the wheel, so to speak?
Yeah, great question. I've actually not reached out to any other cities to see exactly how they might have implemented this. Definitely worthy of a question to see, with fellow finance directors or city management, how if they've awarded themselves these points, how they've done it. Yeah, it's a great suggestion.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now move to consider approval of a bid from MC Green and Sons. Mr. Todd Christensen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Regarding the water line contract, we have been under contract with MC Green and Sons. They have performed really well. We are now considering an extension of their contract. So they provided us with a proposal that outlines the updated unit pricing for all of the items in the unit price contract. And there is some variation, but overall, the contract proposal is to have a 9.2% increase. I believe that this is very reasonable, similar to with increases we are seeing with materials that our water department is seeing. And I believe that it is what the market is, I guess, at. So I did want to make a mention about the significant impacts. The overall price, if you add up the totals, it was like about $2.5 million, but we will definitely manage the project such that we'll stay within planned expenditure limits with budgeting and so forth. So the pricing for for instance, the random locations, it's just kind of a big guess of what maybe some of the prices are, I guess quantities would be. What I'm trying to say is the quantities for random locations will likely be much less than what we've put in the bid, but we don't really know what those quantities will be. But it was, a way to get good pricing for each of those items. So the recommendation is that the City Council accept the proposal from MC Green and Sons and extend the contract for the water line replacement at the unit prices submitted in the updated proposal.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Christensen?
One, was there an escalation clause or anything in last year's contract that specified what increases would be acceptable?
No, there wasn't a range.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, but I'd be happy to make a motion.
Second.
Okay,
Shall I make the motion?
yes, that sounds
Okay.
good.
Make a motion that we extend the contract with MC Green and Company at the unit prices that are printed here with the increases that Mr. Christensen described to us.
Now I'll second.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll turn the time over to Chief Beeler to consider approval of Resolution 2024-06 and 2024-07.
Mayor and members of council, thanks for taking some time with us to have a couple of items on the agenda tonight. The first one, as mentioned, is we're seeking approval of Resolution 2024-6 and 2024-7, which will adopt an interlocal agreement between us and Kaysville and Farmington City. As you're already aware, we've been in discussions there have been discussions about consolidated dispatch in Davis County over the last several years. Earlier in 2023, Clearfield City disbanded their dispatch center and moved to Layton for dispatch services. And then in the latter part of 2023, Kaysville City and Farmington City both approached us to request a bid to provide dispatch services for them, and they're currently being dispatched by Davis County Sheriff's Office. The interlocal agreement that we're requesting to be entered into will be in effect for 5 years. The agreement designates the services that we will provide and the compensation that Bountiful will receive for those services. I think in your packet, it has a brief summary about what that agreement looks like. I'll briefly mention them, and if you have questions, definitely feel free to ask. Bountiful is going to agree to hire 4 new dispatchers in order to provide coverage for those increased workload that we will have. Bountiful will agree to expand the dispatch center to accommodate the additional consoles and workstations. Kaysville and Farmington will agree to pay Bountiful for the same contractual amount that they're paying for Davis County for their services right now. They will also work with Davis County to get a remittance of the E911 revenue that's allotted to their cities that currently goes to Davis County Sheriff's Office. In the event that the Sheriff's Office doesn't cooperate with that or doesn't work with that, they also agree to just pay that difference now and work that out between them and the Sheriff's Office. Let's see, significant impacts. The agreement will necessitate additional dispatch personnel. We're estimating 4 people, and we're in the process of hiring those people right now. Additional equipment is going to be needed, and that's going to be another item here in just a second. And costs for those additions will be recouped by fees from Kaysville and Farmington City. So it's our recommendation that you approve resolutions as noted and enter into an interlocal agreement for those services. Do you have any questions?
Thanks, Chief. Do you have any idea if anybody from the county would be moving over as part of or applying for a position here?
Well, it's a little bit tricky, and we don't know. I've been under the position that I'm not in the business of poaching other people's employees. So as it stands right now, the Sheriff's Office is going to continue to work and run their dispatch center. And so they're going to need employees for that. If they have to reduce their staffing or somebody applies just on their own, then we would consider them, of course. But I don't think that it's in our best interest to go and poach their employees.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just wondering if anybody that has that institutional knowledge that's already working with those cities, would be, but that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's a good answer. I'm wondering, and this is an adjacent question, and I know that you don't know what the county's plans are or what they're doing, but, so do you know if they're continuing their operations? Are they still dispatching for a few cities, or?
What I know right now is they're dispatching for, of course, their deputies and staff that they currently have, and they service West Point, Fruit Heights, South Weber, and maybe some unincorporated areas in the north, and Syracuse. Maybe one fire department, I can't remember. So those are the people that they are working with. The sheriff is going to have to make a decision about whether his organization is going to stay in the dispatch business or not. And Bountiful's position up until now has really just been, we're running a dispatch center and our partner agencies are happy with the service that they provide. If other organizations want to participate in what we do, then we will have discussions with that, but we're also not out recruiting other cities or other agencies to participate with us. And myself and Gary have felt that that's been the most prudent way for us to do business.
That's great. Do you know, and this is the last question I have, but the Emergency Operations Center, I know that the county's breaking ground for a new center, and so is that a different function that's different than a dispatch center then?
Correct. So the county still has a function to run an emergency operations center and have that function for countywide, even though there are many cities who have our own emergency operations, but they have a countywide responsibility. My understanding is that building would service that and be purposes for that. It's not a dispatch center, is my understanding.
Thanks. Sorry, I got a little off there, but,
That's okay.
but any other questions for the chief on this?
I have a follow-up question, and before I get to my follow-up question, though, it follows your line of questioning, Mayor. I had occasion to talk with 2 Kaysville City Council members in the last few days who were excited and thrilled with this development and made it a point to mention that they viewed this as a really great solution for their cities, and were really confident in this switch. And so I think that's a real compliment to you, your department, and to your officers, and to the dispatchers, that when presented opportunities to consider how to provide a critical service at value to their residents, that they really had no qualms, and made it a point to mention that they were excited and looking forward to this move. So I hopefully you'll let your department know that the other cities seem to be very excited about the opportunity here. The second is it's about the Emergency Operations Center the county's building. Do they have a current Emergency Operations Center that you're aware of that they would be exiting in order to take on this new building? And I recognize this is a left field answer, but I'm just really curious about those unused spaces.
I'm not sure, to be honest, what their current emergency operations center is. My belief is that they use one of their training rooms for that purpose, but I could be mistaken with that.
Thank you for fielding random questions.
I would like to follow up just real quick. I mean, long before I've been the chief, it's been instilled in me as well. And what I try to do also is partnerships are a big deal for us, and having good relationships and partnerships with everybody around us. This is some of that fruit of those relationship building and having good partnerships with people. But I would also say Amy, our dispatch supervisor, has just been amazing through this process, and what that translates to all of our dispatchers as well, of course. I feel like we have a good reputation in dispatching, and it's the hard work that they do, and Amy's leadership as the dispatch supervisor has been great.
I have a question, Mayor. Chief, I'm wondering, one thing that you mentioned were some of those cities that are still going to be using the county dispatch. And I'm wondering, with this addition, when we've talked about it before, the addition of space and consoles, and these are 2 fairly significantly sized cities in our county. If other cities, smaller cities, I guess the question is, what is our capacity without, from this point, adding more consoles or more space to bring on other cities or organizations that might want to partner with us in this same way?
It would be difficult to take on more cities with the space that we have. I think that technically, I think it probably could happen, but not at a large level. So if, as an example, we took, or other larger cities wanted to explore options with us, we would have to do some more remodeling and whatnot to do that. We feel comfortable with where we're at right now, though. We wanted some redundancy in a north end and a south end dispatching component. Kaysville South, we felt like has been a really good break in a north and a south end based upon population and agency size and various things that go into that. So again, we're not outwardly looking to expand anything different than what we already have, but we also have not closed doors on anybody either to say absolutely not, we are not taking anybody else on. So that's that.
But we don't have really, after this, spare space to be like, yeah,
We'll
we
have
could take on
to-
Fruit Heights or
What we
other-
believe right now, and what we, based upon call volumes and the number of consoles that we've allotted and the number of dispatchers right now, we'll have two additional consoles that are not being used on a regular basis. Now, we wanted to do that in case there's an emergency somewhere else, and let's say Layton needed a console or two, that they would be able to come down here and be able to work, or the sheriff's office. Or if there are large events or let's say, our parade or North Salt Lake's fireworks, and we needed to call in additional people, we have space to be able to do that. So if we took on another city or two or another entity or two, and we felt like we had the space and the consoles to be able to do it, we probably could. We just start to lose some extra space for those larger events, types of events.
Thank you. Any other questions for the chief?
One, if I could, maybe another. Chief, were they, these two cities, Kaysville and Farmington, were they price shopping primarily, or were they looking for another reason?
They were, this started based upon the dispatch consolidation discussions that have been happening for quite some time. So they were concerned that the sheriff's office was not going to be a dispatch option for them, whether that's the near future or at some point. And they didn't want to be left out in the cold of what their options are. So at that point, they did look at other options. We were one of them, and they like the way we do business. We've had a good relationship and partnership with their chiefs and officers and city officials for many years. So they understand and are comfortable with how we operate, and price is a component as well. And our price was what they felt comfortable paying for the service.
Great. Thanks for doing business that way. And interesting how consolidation is happening organically without force behind it.
Sure.
And Southeast Asia looked nice too, by the way. Hope you enjoyed your time there.
It was amazing.
Cool.
You ready for a motion?
Will we need 3 separate motions on this?
This is one motion
Or
for.
one?
Mhm.
I'd be happy to make a motion.
Was that right?
I think it's
Do we
2.
need 2?
Two different motions, one for Centerville and one for Kaysville, one for Farmington.
Okay, sorry, stand
Do
corrected.
we need a motion for the interlocal cooperation agreement,
I think it's the resolution.
or just the resolutions? Okay, well, I would, make a motion that we approve the Bountiful City and Farmington City Interlocal Agreement Resolution 2024-06.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
I would also make a motion that we approve the Bountiful City and Kaysville City Interlocal Agreement Resolution 2024-07.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Those resolutions pass, and now we will consider approval of the purchase of 4 dispatch consoles. Chief?
Okay. A lot of the background and analysis is the exact same of what we just talked about, so I won't need to go through any of that. I'm just letting you know what we are purchasing. In 2017, we purchased some new consoles to upgrade the ones that we do have in there. We went through a state bid contract with Zybex. We reached out to Zybex again to inquire about this project of getting 4 more consoles. They're no longer on the state bid contract. They did provide us with a quote of $92,497.10. Zybex would be the only company that we could use that would be able to provide console furniture that matches what we currently have. So we would like to continue to work to go with them. To get on the install schedule, we need to be ready for this move by January 1st of 2025. I think I forgot to mention that in the previous presentation, but that's when the interlocal agreement takes effect. So we need to have our dispatch center remodeled and the furniture installed and people hired and trained well before that. So in order to get on their schedule, we had to already make a agreement with them in early June. And after consulting with the city manager and by following city policy, he authorized the purchase of the consoles in the beginning of June so that we could get on that schedule. So right now, we're just respectfully asking your approval for the purchase of those 4 dispatch, the furniture for those dispatch consoles in the amount of $92,497.10.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, and now Mr. Alan Johnson will consider approval of the purchase of 3 transformers from Western United Electrical.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council, it's great to be here today. And as we said, we did meet with the Power Commission this morning. Appreciate your comments that you did make. But because we went to Power Commission, I have some things we need to talk about. So the first one we have is transformers, which we seem like we're always talking about transformers. But I'll bring up these 3 transformers are actually what we'll be using into the future. Because of the long lead time, you'll notice the lead time on this transformer is 80 weeks. I mean, you're talking knocking on over a year and a half to get a transformer in. Fortunately, we have some in inventory, and we'll be using these for 3 projects that are on-slated that will be happening, I would imagine, sometime this summer, but we'll be moving around using our inventory until these can come back in. So we did go out to get bids. Transformers are still really hard to come by, long lead time. As you'll notice, we was only able to get 2 of them. The third one, they weren't even offering bids at this point. Even though things seem to be getting better, their delays are still out there. So anyway, it would be the Power Commission staff's recommendation that we award the 2 75 kVA transformers and the 1 750 kVA transformer to Western States Electrical for the ERMCO of $65,691.25.
Questions?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the purchase of 3 transformers from Western United Electric for the sum of $65,691.25.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, our next item is to consider approval of the varnish mitigation services.
Yes, as Councilman Pryce has talked about, we've been working on our 5 megawatt or our smaller unit that would run really quite well until it started getting warm, and then it would overheat the bearing on it. And we have been working with solar, not the solar as in the sun solar, but like the solar systems where it comes from, but it's the manufacturer. And we've been trying to work our way back through it. We've looked at blocks, we looked at all kinds of things and couldn't come up with what was causing. And as they got digging deeper into it, one of the things that we do different as a utility, we use our equipment as peaking resources. So your typical turbine like this, they like to start them and they just run them nonstop, run them 30,000 hours, pull them out, put a new one, and run them for another 30,000 hours. But because we run them 10, 12 hours a day through the summer for peaking, we're getting longer years into it. And this varnish is basically a degradation of the oil just for time. It's like your gasoline. If you leave it in your gas can without stabilizer, it kind of gets a varnish. So that's really what it was doing. And this varnish would coat the inside of the cooling. So essentially, we came in here and they says, you need to run it, and then we'll filter it as the varnish gets into the oil and pull it back out. So we tried that, and you'll notice on here that there was 2 quotes, and the first one was for $14,000, which we have already done. We started that, and they'd be completed with that at the end of this month. But it's already up, and like I say, as the temperatures have been running 100 degrees in the afternoon, our little unit has been running pretty much nonstop the full month of June, and it's not having any heating issues, so it was a success. But because while they're there, we thought if we've got it in the little one, do we have it in the bigger ones, and we have some there. So this is, because it goes over the $20,000 into next year's budget, to do the final one for the $23,250. But so we'd like to get approval for the whole process of getting the varnish removed out of our 3 units for the $38,000. And again, the $14,750 will come out of this current year's budget, and the remainder will come out of next year's budget out of the operating fund for the power plant. But like I say, it's been well worth it, just even these last 3 or 4 days with the 100-degree temperatures to have it up and operating. It's saved the city a lot of money. So it'd be that Power Commission staff's recommendation that we do approve Relodyne for the $38,000.
Thank you.
Could I just make a comment before you make your motion? I One thing that I remember from when this came up for the first time a couple of months ago in Power Commission meeting, one thing that really stuck in my mind is somebody, and it may have even been you, Alan, said our power plant is so clean and so carefully and meticulously cared for and kept clean and neat as a pin that you could practically eat off the floor. And I just think that, I just wanted to mention that because I think it again just speaks to the pride and care that is put into every part of our power resources. And these, I love how you call it the little unit. Like it's just that little engine that just like keeps going for more than 20 years. So anyway, thanks, and I'll turn the time over to
Thank you.
I was prepared to make a motion. I love that you guys have troubleshot this and figured out it's the varnish and have a solution to keep it running long and get us through this hot summer. So that's my motion. We approve the expenditure of $38,000 to solve our varnish problem.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now Mr. Alan Johnson to consider the approval of Resolution 2024-08.
I just would like to say, acknowledge my power plant supervisor, Mr. Kurt Cloward, takes really great pride, and like, you're absolutely right. You walk through this thing, it's hard to believe this is actually a working power plant, as nice as those people keep it. So I will pass that on, but thank you. The next one we have is a little bit tougher one. It's the Resolution 2024-08, and it's for the solar prepay transition. And prepay is probably a tough name, but that's what they call it. What we've got is an opportunity to be involved with the group through UAMPS to take our two solar projects, our Red Mesa and our solar, and put this into what they call a prepay. And what it is the Southeast Energy Authority, which is a joint action agency in conjunction with, my mind just went blank. I'm trying to find it on here. The J. Aaron through company that will come back through and give us this thing. What they do is they go out and they borrow money on a 5-year basis. And then because we can borrow on a tax exempt basis compared to taxable, they can use that difference and actually make some money on it, and it's a legal function that's being done. This is a process that we've done with our power plant to buy our natural gas, and we get a discount on our natural gas. This allows us to take in, and it won't be all of it, a portion of our solar power and save 8% of about 80% of the energy that flows through those two projects. This will be on a timing. They're looking at the first one as a 5-year time, and if they get the 8%, they'll move with it. Right now, the market looks good, but like I say, if we get here and get all the approvals and the market goes away, we may have to wait 6 months or a year until the market lines up again, and they'll do it. As they move through this, if it goes to the end of 5 years and they can't continue to give us 8%, it'll just go idle. We'll then just pay the normal price for the power for the two projects until such time that the market would line back up again. It's similar we have with our gas through BP, where we're able to do that, and it has worked real well. We got through, and our Councilwoman Susie Becker works for Zions Bank, who went and visited with her banking people and gave a strong recommendation this morning. This is very safe. It's a great opportunity to do it. I also had an opportunity when I was in San Diego to visit with Mr. Chapman, who is a principal of the Chapman Associates, and I went with Jim Burr, and he went through, he's done a bunch of these, he's been involved in it, and he absolutely believes this is a great process and that Bountiful should be involved when it would be to save some money. The only thing that it really does is it means we have to take this solar power and use it in our system, which is not a stretch because that's why we bought that, to cover Bountiful's load. So that's not a big risk, but that would be the biggest thing that we have, that we would have to plan on using that in our system and not use it to sell off to somebody else. So But again, we bought it in such a way not to be a marketer, but to actually use it with their load. So it would be the Power Commission staff's recommendation that we allow the mayor to sign the resolution, and then there would be the tax forms that was included that are just in draft form, which would be filled out at such time with the dates and the amounts once they get ready to actually sign the contracts, which could be short or a couple of months from now, depending on when the market lands up. So I'd be glad to try and answer any questions on this if you have some.
After the meeting, Ellen, I'd like you to diagram for me how this helps them and makes them money.
Well, basically what it is by having the difference of the when they bond it, the finances, they're sharing in basically the profits between the dollars that they're between two. While it sits in the bank, they earn interest in between it, and they also the difference of it. So they're sharing in that. We get the 8% off, and they're taking another 8% for their other. So that's how much difference the arbitrage is in between it. So
Great. Mayor, I'm happy to make a motion if you're ready.
I have a question before you do that, if you don't mind. Are the other municipal power cities that are involved in these projects, are they also undertaking this agreement, or would we be alone, or are we going to have friends?
No. My understanding is we are one of the last ones to approve it. St. George, I believe they're looking this week to get theirs approved. We are the last two. And St. George is a much bigger piece of it. The steel project, I think they're the vast majority of the second phase. So if St. George did not approve it, it probably wouldn't have enough to make it work. But I believe we are next to the last one to approve it. So we are within friends in the group. Everybody involved in the project is going through it.
Good to know. Thank you.
One other question that came to mind when you mentioned steel again. Could you give us a very brief update on battery procurement for steel?
Yeah, like I say, they've got a proposal that came back, and Steel's proposal to put batteries in ended up being almost 10 cents a kilowatt hour to use it. So they're going to not move forward to that. There's still part of the project they'll allow us sites, but they're looking at a different option. The project through Steels did not make sense. We were looking really strong at a site down in Fremont that would be the Long Roads, that included, it would be another 90 megawatt site with 50 megawatts of battery. That was really, really a great project. And we're still dealing with that, but because of, we're back to the transmission that Councilman Price Hughes talked about, they cannot guarantee that they would be able to get it on the network, which would guarantee they would get power to us, which should be more of an interruptible rate, which that's too big of a risk. So we're still working, trying to get that onto the network, and if that worked, the batteries down there really did make sense. But the steel one right now, the cost was prohibitive, and we're still looking through UAMPS for another option to do that, because obviously batteries is something, or some sort of storage mechanism. We need to work that out to cover that duck curve or the afternoon peak we have as the sun goes down. So,
On average, do you know what the cost for transmission is on our kilowatt hour, average cost?
I should have it, but I'm going to guess. It's like right currently, as of May 30th, it was $6.83 per megawatt hour. And it's currently going to like $9.53 per megawatt hour. So it's $2.50 increase as of the 1st of June. Now, I may be off on the pennies, but that's roughly what it is.
So that's 25 cents per kilowatt hour for us? Or is 0.25 cents,
Well,
2.5
basically,
cents?
for every megawatt, if we're paying $100 a megawatt, we would have another $9, so it'll be 110. So it's roughly a tenth of a cent for everything that we're buying.
Oh, very good.
Okay, and at the magnitude of what the increase they were talking about, we roughly go through 280 million kilowatt hours, so that's going to be roughly $600,000 increase that we're looking at that was not budgeted for, that will be, like I say, starting 1st of June, but on 1st of July, we're basically $600 up, or $600,000 upside down out of contingency right out the bat. So
Wow. Wow. Well, I appreciate your work because it could be worse if we weren't carefully mitigating. I mean, that's how it's been all this time through these years with this perfect storm of everything the power department's dealing with. The way that you are managing it, it's definitely could be worse. So thank you so much. Any other questions about this item?
I guess, can I ask Tyson a question? Sorry, Tyson. Because I guess I'm still a little confused by this process they want to do. It feels, I appreciate that we're with other friends in this project, and so that gives me some comfort. But I'm trying to understand, so this entity wants us to do this collectively because they're able to take the difference between bonding at a municipal level versus the interest rate as bonding as a private corporate entity. And the delta between those different rates allows this company to make some money in doing this, but yet we're still able to get a discount on our rates. I'm confused where our discount comes from since we were already contracted at a certain price.
I'm afraid I'm not knowledgeable enough in that area to give you a good answer there. I couldn't say exactly how their mechanism is deriving that margin.
But you're correct, and I thought you stated it fairly well in the fact that they go out and borrow on tax exempt, and because they have the arbitrage that they can now earn interest higher than what they're borrowing it for, they actually, as the bills come in through our solar, and like I say, both Red Mesa and Steel have both had to agree that they would send a bill to this the SEA, the company that would do that. And what they'll do is then pay the bill, and then because the bill's still being paid, Steel and Red Mesa gets paid exactly what the contract was. Only difference is they take the arbitrage of that money difference from the difference between tax exempt and typical borrowing and use some of that proceeds to help pay that down, so we get a discount, but they also get to make some money on it in the process also.
So do both of these solar projects already have underlying bonds that were taken out to build them? I'm just confused how you bond against a project that's already bonded against.
It does not affect, when I call prepay, we're not actually sending any money to Red Mesa or to Steel. They're going to continue sending a bill just like they would normally, which would then pay their bondholders. But what you're going to have is you're going to have this agency that is borrowing this money on the 5-year period. They'll send the bill to them. They will still pay, say, Steel or Red Mesa exactly what they would have sent to us. Only we'll pay them the bill minus the difference because they're making on that money that they've had in savings and earning money on it as they go. And should they fail, and then they can't do it, and somehow this company crashes and burns and can't make the payments, we don't become liable because it's not our indebtedness, we're not doing it. The Red Mesa and Steel would then turn around and just send us the bill, and we would pay it like if nothing else had happened. So it has very little risk to the city, but it's a legal mechanism, and it's something they've done to help municipalities. Natural gas in the natural gas world they do this, it's a big one. That's why I say this Southeast Energy Authority is a derivative of Arkansas gas. So I mean, these are the people who have been doing this for years, and it's a way of giving municipalities an ability to take advantage of what normal companies do by using taxes that we can't do.
Okay, well, I will trust in your research and in UAMP's research, and I will look forward to Susie Becker and others joining me and Councilman Higginson in a chart of how this actually works. Feels like selling shorts, but yeah.
Indeed. I do want to put everyone's mind at ease as well, because Goldman Sachs has been deemed too big to fail. So your crash and burn scenario, Alan, just can't happen.
No, that's why I say Goldman Sachs is a big entity, and J. Aaron's a subsidiary of it.
Indeed.
And the Southeast Energy is all joint action agency, which is a huge gas entity. So, I mean, you've got some big players. And like I say, the other thing is Jim Burr, which is the counsel for him. I have a lot of confidence in him, dealt with him for 30 plus years. And that gives you a lot of confidence because he understands it very well. And I wish he was standing here because he could reiterate it much better than I am. I mean, I might be a power guy, but when you start getting the finances, I struggle in explaining it. As people tell me it, oh, that makes sense, but I don't know it well enough to teach it back. And that's what I say, I'm not gonna go take Tyson's job being the finance director. That's not my strong point there, so.
Well, I'm grateful we have people like Susie Becker that has the background, the finance, and I know that we also do have very gifted, between everybody on this team, we've got some great minds and some great directions. So I'm sure that they'd be happy to get real minute.
Forward to
Yeah.
a flow chart and a spreadsheet and a pivot table to make sure it's clear.
I will say this is something that came before the Power Commission a couple months ago, or a month ago for the first time.
We've actually talked about it for three
and,
meetings, so.
It was something that came back because we were not fully comfortable. And I think everybody felt very comfortable today when Susie came and gave her explanation. And I'll bet she would be more than willing to come and do that for us here. But I think it's that, that term of 5 to 10 years of prepayment, and that her contacts, who are experts in this field, felt that the city was assuming very little, if no risk, doing this. And it's just one of these financial mechanisms that these tricky people are able to exploit. We're not going to bear risk, but they have an opportunity to make money, and that's the way it works.
Well, thank you. Any other questions on this before we have a motion?
Mayor, I'm happy to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2024-08, the solar prepaid transaction contract.
Second.
And that we not just allow the mayor to sign that contract, but we compel her to sign that contract. A turn of phrase from Councilmember Knight.
Yes.
We're against compelling.
Oh, but on this,
John Mark Knight.
must be compelled.
Yes, thank you. Okay, and then that was seconded by Councilwoman Price Hewish. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minus the compelling, thank you. That motion passes, thank you. And now we'll move to our next item for you, Mr. Alan Johnson.
Yes, we'll bring out the infinite polls here as we're looking at our inventory. Again, this would be a single source item. There's only one manufacturer that does butt-treated poles, and just as a reminder, we talked about it this morning, because our poles are in the backyard and our crews climb them in the backyard, if you get a fully treated one, when it sits in the sun, as our superintendent says, they're dirty, but not so much as they're dirty, they become extremely hard. And when you're climbing a pole and those little hooks are trying to stick in there, a hard pole is very dangerous and people can fall off. A lot of people are using fully treated, but their poles are out on the street where we can get with bucket trucks and they climb them very seldom. But in our case, 90% of our poles are in backyards. So we went back and got back from Stella to get these 50 poles, which I will say there was a misprint. The second one should be 45-foot poles. The pricing's the same. It's 35 and 45-foot poles. You'll notice that the delivery on these have stretched out a little bit. These were always about 6 weeks, so these won't be in test period 11 to 12 weeks, which is going to put us somewhere around in November, which will give us a decent inventory before we start heading into our windstorm area, heavens forbid, but we'll be beefed up from what we used through the summer to get it here. So it would be the Power Commission and staff's recommendation that we approve the 50 poles from Stella Jones for $50,168. Again, this will be put into inventory. We'll just use them as we pull them out of inventory.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the 50 butt-treated poles from Stella Jones for the sum of $50,168.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now our last item.
The
Thank you.
last item we have is, if you remember, in April, we came before you to get streetlights. We have our underground wires that have been failing over the last number of years, and we fail them as they go through. And through the winter, we just collect them because we don't dig the road up and then get them all fixed. We've had 2 more that have shown up, and we would like to add them on to the previous bid of the big iron drilling, and the additional cost would be $37,308. This would be coming out of next year's budget, which we've identified money back into it. It got pointed out to me this morning that one of the streets would be Councilman Higgins, I believe, that the light was out. I think that's what they were saying this morning, so.
It flashes on and off, 5, 8 times an hour, so it's nice.
Well, we do that on purpose for you, to help you out. But anyway, it would be the Power Commission staff's recommendation that we add on to the original contract from Big Iron Drilling while they're here, to have them do these last 2 bores. And you'll see the map on this second page here where they're talking. This would be a turnkey like we've done, where they would bore in the conduit, put the wire, fix the lights, put the new LED lights onto it, and put everything back into it. And they're doing it for the same basic cost they did through the billing, or the bid that we did earlier in the year. So that would be the Power Commission staff's recommendation, to add Big Iron Drilling the $37,308. So their total approved project to be $107,430, of which the majority of that they'll have done in this current year's budget.
Thank you. Okay, any questions on this? I'll entertain a motion.
A motion to approve to extend the bid for the additional directional bores from Big Iron Drill for $37,308.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And thanks for an indulgence on the prepay one.
You do a great job for us, Alan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Higginson, and we are adjourned.